This has been a great gathering of different worldviews, but also a way of making these interconnections from a cultural, Esquel, Indigenous woman perspective with Western science, and just being able to listen to the research work and how much that actually aligns and supports a lot of what our Indigenous knowledge carries has been really important for me as an artist.
It's a collaboration that involves different ways of seeing the world, of interpreting the world, of framing it in a cultural context, but then also bridging the sciences and the art. The science itself doesn't always have meaning associated with it, and that's what the art can bring to it.
I'm a scholar artist. I use a lot of arts-based research and practices within my scholarship and teaching. I've always kind of used art as a way of communicating. I've had the pleasure of being able to listen and learn from John and his work around the health and wellness of our mountain water. I'm always really surprised at how Western science, like a lot of the research, is catching up to just a small portion of Indigenous knowledge.
Working with Lana, we were able to bridge or at least link not just scientific and artistic traditions, but cultural traditions of settler Canadians and Indigenous peoples who've been here for a long time, and look at Western science and how it provides different information to the tremendous Indigenous knowledge which goes back for millennia of observations in these same environments. And when things connected, and they did very often, we can build a sort of a multi-dimensional picture of what's happening and what it really means.
We've always had prophecies and, of course, oral traditions, as well as practices of how to care and be a steward of the land. And so it's really important work, especially, listening to John's research of just capturing and documenting the changes happening to our water mountains and being able to use this knowledge to advocate and create more awareness around the state of our waters, because the waters impact the lands, the soils.
I've been researching the waters in the Canadian Rockies for many decades, and there's a certain resilience to mountain water, that it can withstand some disturbances. But then there are incredibly rapid climate changes occurring in the Rockies, with earlier snowmelt, changes to the sources of water as glaciers melt faster and then decline, and more severe droughts, wildfires through here. And then on top of all this was the idea of expanding coal mining in the headwaters of the mountains. After the experience on the British Columbia side of the mountains, where selenium poisoning of the water was orders of magnitude higher than acceptable limits, and it's a terrible toxic substance for the fish and the organisms in the water, as well as the humans that drink it. And so Lana's art captured this very, very well, that yes, there's a power and a serenity and a resilience to these mountain waters, but you can break them as well.
This particular painting was really about kind of the unedited response of the anger I was feeling from the pollution of our mountain waters, processing the impacts, especially the connection of women to water, and how our women bodies reflect the health of our lands and our waters. And fire in Cree actually means woman's heart, Esquel and Ote. And so the women's heart of being the home fires. And of course, there's a whole different story about the disconnection of women from our governance.
There's only one health, the health of the environment, the health of the animals and plants, the health of the humans is all one thing. And when we start to perturb and disturb the natural environment, the implications go right through to our own health.
The second piece was a 13 Moons series, and the piece was called Aiki Pisim, which is Frog Moon or April. And this is, in our Cree culture, we have 6 seasons. So breaking of the water is one of those seasons, when the ice is melting. And this was where I was actually able to process a lot of that anger from the first piece into this piece, where it kind of influenced this embodying the waters, but how, returning back to our water systems, of caring for our water, of making that water sacred again. Our sacred responsibilities is that transforming the health and the wellness of our water systems through the health and wellness of our women.
This collaboration in that sense of science to art and Western and Indigenous culture, and two different knowledge bases, the scientific knowledge base and the Indigenous knowledge base. So that it made this very interesting.
Part of that co-creative process was both this reciprocity of learning and exploring more, which it also kind of relates to truth and reconciliation, of being able to share these truths and being able to have meaningful conversations.
If we're going to find solutions for humanity in water and climate future that is going to be very challenging, then we have to bring in all the strengths of every cultural tradition, thought process, and other that we have available to us, because it's going to take all of those together to get this through, and science won't be able to do that alone.
I think the co-creation was a really good reflection of how we can work together within that Indigenous and Western science to help bring a broader kind of urgency to this work of advocating for our waters.